Hi everyone, you're watching Tamit Saleh's Tennis Forum. Before I begin, I'd just like to make a quick announcement. All the money generated in this part and part two, this is a two-part special, I will be donating to the Australian bushfire. You can also donate on the link below. But as you know, the way money is generated on YouTube is via adverts. So please do not skip the ads. Just let them play out, even if it's in the background or something. So more money can be donated to the bushfires. But yeah, this is going to be for part one and part two of this special podcast. But yeah, as I've mentioned, this is a two-part special with a friend of the channel called Tibor Hunyadi, where we discussed potential banana skins for the big three, our favourites and predictions for the Australian Open winner. And then in part two, you will have how you can support the bushfires and also can the Australian Open be cancelled. So yeah, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this podcast.
Hi, Tamit. Thanks a lot for having me on your show.
Hi, Tibor. You okay?
Yes, I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. It's really great to have you on the channel. Of course, for anyone that isn't aware, Tibor is a very good friend of my channel. He's always commenting great, insightful analysis. And I believe you have some news. Recently, you've started something up.
Yeah, that's right, Tamit. Thanks for the introduction. Yes, I started a channel of my own just now in December, and I'm planning to keep going and bring weekly content, weekly videos on tennis. My main motivation behind it was that, well, ever since I was a young kid, I loved tennis. I've been watching tennis for over 25 years. And even when I was a kid, I realized that when commentators do comment on TV, especially in the region where I come from, I knew more about players and events than they did. So I realized I have to do something well, and I am good in tennis analysis usually. So yeah, thanks for having me on the show, and let's see how this channel goes.
Yeah, nice, good. And yeah, I just like to tell everyone that do subscribe and follow Tibor's channel. I'll be putting a link in the description as well. So yeah, do go check him out. But yeah, today we are going to be talking about the draw and giving out the predictions of how the Australian Open should be going, or how we think it will be going. And then we'll also talk about the situation with the air pollution because of the bushfires. There's been some talk about having the tournament cancelled, whether it's safe or not for the players. So we'll touch on that. And yeah, of course, please do not forget, I'll be also attaching a link to the wwf.org.uk page where you can donate and contribute to the bushfires. So yeah, let's begin, Tibor, if you're ready.
Yes, of course. Go ahead, Tamit.
So of course the draw came out a couple of days ago now. We've all seen the draws, seen the projected routes, etc. What do you make of the draw? Who do you think's got it hard? Who do you think's maybe got it easy? Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, Tamit. Yeah, we've all seen the draw. It was a nice show you've done something like 2 days ago on it when it was released. I think we have interesting trajectories for the big three, and Daniil Medvedev as well. We have potential fourth round clashes between Rafa and Nick Kyrgios. If both get that far, that's something to look out for, and that's most definitely going to be very interesting.
To stop you there, sorry. In that Rafa and Kyrgios match projected in the fourth round, who is your favorite for that match?
This is a really tough call. We all know that if Nick is playing at 100% and he's focused and he loves to play the big three, he has a good chance. On the other hand, Rafa's got him last year at Wimbledon in the second round, and I think he has the confidence in Grand Slams against almost anybody to beat them. So I'm leaning a little bit 50, or let's say 51% Rafa and 49 Nick. So
very politically correct.
Yeah, I'm giving the slight edge to Rafa on that one.
Yeah, personally, I think I'd just go straight down the middle, 50-50. I think both on their day can beat the other player, especially in the Australian Open where Nick will have the home support. I think he's turned a bit of a corner in terms of his behavioral problems. So,
Yes.
and of course, he's still carrying on his every ace he does, he'll be giving $200. So I'm sure there'll be no, how Kyrgios sometimes gives up on matches and things like that. I'm almost 100% confident this isn't going to happen, only because there's now charity money involved and things like that. So I expect Nick to be on his game, and yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Nick won or if Rafa won. So for me, that's a 50-50 one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, and you're making a very valid point on Nick Kyrgios. He's turned things around a little bit lately. He was also praised in the ATP Cup for his behavior. I think the way he was collaborating with his teammates and Leighton Hewitt and everything, that was really wonderful. And he also had, you said at the beginning that we're going to talk about the bushfires. So he himself had an initiative to help out and contributed organizing this relief hit with the great stars, with Roger, Rafa.
Some very funny moments there.
Yeah, and I think for him as a person, as a tennis player, this is a very good corner and very good development curve, because he's been known as the bad boy of tennis. Everybody hated him or liked him, but he's really starts to change. If he can keep this up, I think he's going to be really very popular, not just in Australia, but all around the world.
Yep. I completely agree with you, and I think
But it's important for him to keep this up. So we still, the jury is still out on that. So we need to see if he can really keep it up in the next few days at the Aussie Open and afterwards.
Yep, agreed. I think for Australia there won't be a problem, but it'll be after Australian Open how Nick fares. But right now he's a bit of a nation's darling, a media darling. So I expect nothing less than 100% from Nick for at least Australian Open, which is why I have it at 50-50 against Rafa.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to some of the other like potential banana skins. For instance, Novak Djokovic quarterfinal against Stefanos Tsitsipas. The head-to-head is 2-2. Do you see Tsitsipas any chance of beating Novak, or Novak too good in Australia?
Well, I see some chance, but going into that one, I think Djokovic is the favorite. So he's so good in Australia, 7-time champion, now at the ATP Cup, also doing really well. Tsitsipas showed some wonderful promise at the end of last year. He wasn't doing especially that well at the ATP Cup now. So we know with him it's a little bit up and down. He had a very good start at the beginning of last season, then dropped a little bit off after the French Open and Wimbledon. US Open was really not good at all for him, and then he picked it up again at the end of the year. So now, after watching the ATP Cup and the way he played, I think I cannot really say he seems to be in a fantastic shape. He played an exhibition before the ATP Cup. He played Novak, and he's beaten Novak in that exhibition, but he lost to Rafa in the final. So it's a little bit of a hit and miss with him. I think if he's on his day and he's going to feel confident after playing the first 4 rounds, after the first 4 matches, and he's really on his A game, then even if Djokovic is supreme, he still has a shot. But if not, if something is off, then Djokovic is definitely going to steamroll him.
Yep. I mean, I don't know about you. If I had to put a percentage on it right now, I'd probably lean towards 75-25 to Djokovic. Does that sound fair, or what about yourself?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as a pre-assessment. We can revisit that if that quarterfinal really happens. Yeah,
of course. And of course, with Roger as well, out of all the quarterfinalists, he seems to have got, or on paper at least, the slightly easier one in Berrettini.
Yeah.
Potential semi-final against Novak Djokovic. Of course, Federer got that victory against him in London to knock Djokovic out and stop Novak from getting that 6th year-end number 1. If they were to meet in the semi-finals again, do you see Roger carrying that on? He is quite fresh. He's played very little tennis since then, actually. So yeah, between Novak and Roger in a potential semi-final match, how do you see that one going?
That's also a very, very tough lineup. There's so many variables to consider. As you said in your video the last time, that Roger hasn't beaten Djokovic for about 4 years, up to that point at the World Tour Finals last year in November. It was a good and really important win for him. The court surface favors. If you would talk about clay, then I would definitely say that it's Djokovic's game. But we both know that Federer and Djokovic both are fantastic players on hard court. But this is a slightly faster hard court than what they have at the US Open, for instance. And this is a little bit more similar as a surface to what they play at London in the World Tour Finals. It's actually the same manufacturer who constructs now the Australian Open court than the one
they started
they do in London.
Year, right?
Exactly. So, and they also built the tournaments in the courts for the tournament in Sydney and Brisbane for the ATP Cup. So it's supposed to be a little bit similar as a surface, and I think, from a surface perspective, I would give a little edge for Roger on this one. Where he falls behind is the fact that this is a slam and this is the best of 5, so he needs to win 3 sets. If Roger gets on to a super good start and wins the first set and maybe the second, then I see Roger potentially winning. If it's 1-1 after the first 2 sets, or Djokovic wins the first set, then I think it's Djokovic's match.
I'd pretty much agree. Some very fair points you make there, Thibaut, and also very good points about the court surface and the manufacturer and all of that. I pretty much agree with you. Looking at the earlier rounds, of course, we've been talking about the quarterfinal, semi-final, because that's where it gets really interesting in a slam the second week. But I mean, just looking at all 3 of their first 3 rounds, I don't see any problems. So, for instance, Novak Djokovic, Struff first round, potentially Tatsuma, and then Dan Evans in the 3rd round. Do you see any problems? I don't really see any problems there for a shock early exit.
No, I don't think so. So it's pretty straightforward, I think, as well. Yeah. It's all predictions and anything else can happen. But as we look at the draw today, it seems pretty straightforward.
Yep, and then Rafa's got Delian, and potentially Delbonis or Sousa, and then Pablo Carreno Busta, his fellow countryman. Don't see any problems, do you?
No, not really. The first problem would be the 4th round, whether he plays Khachanov or Kyrgios. I think Kyrgios would be the bigger threat.
Yep, 100%. And then with Roger as well, he's got Johnson, forgive my pronunciation, Krajinovic, and then Hurkacz might be a bit of a problem in the 3rd round, potentially. But yeah, I would expect Roger to come through those as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hurkacz, big guy, big hitter, but nothing that really stands out as extraordinary. Reminds me a little bit of Thomas Berdych, the Czech player.
Yeah. Got the same type of body frame.
Yes.
So and then of course, Roger 4th round. Things actually get interesting from the 4th round. Federer could face Shapovalov, who I have big expectations for this year. Rafa, of course, Nick Kyrgios, and then Novak seems to have got it maybe slightly easier. It is likely to face Diego Schwartzman, who personally I don't see Novak having any problems against either. So it looks like the second week of Australia is really where it's going to be kicking off.
Another thing to look out for is possibly Yannick Sinner, the young Italian guy. If I'm not mistaken, there is a chance for him and Shapovalov to meet in the 2nd round. That would be probably an interesting match. I'm not sure that Sinner is strong enough already to take on Shapo in 5 sets, but that should be a match to watch.
It'll be good to see where he's at right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Especially against now, because of course he won the next gen finals, but he's up against the, let's say, men, even though Shapovalov is next gen as well. But it'll be interesting on a 5-set tournament how he does. But yeah, so yeah, that's roughly through the big three. Anything else you have to say about the draw, anything like that, Tibo, and then probably end it with your predictions on the winner outright.
Hmm. Yeah, we've talked about the big four. There is Medvedev as well, showing really good form at the beginning of the year, ATP Cup. I think he has a tough draw, Medvedev, compared to the other three. I think he has the toughest draw, to be honest. And if the big three make it to the semis, I expect Medvedev to be there as well. It would be interesting to see him play Rafa in the semi or him playing Kyrgios. That would be quite something.
Yeah, I think especially against Rafa because of his London. Well, he just imploded in it from 5-1 up in the decider to losing that match. It'll be quite interesting to see how he fares against Rafa.
Exactly. I think Medvedev is a guy who can be mentally very, very strong, and if he seems to have a good team around him with Gilles Savara being his coach for some time now, I think he mentally he's a very, very tough guy. If you look at his game and if you watch him, you may think, well, not very spectacular, maybe a little bit Murray-like with pushing a lot of balls back, but the guy is incredibly resilient, wonderful court coverage, good legs. He needs maybe to improve a little bit the passing shots, the lobs, the volleys definitely, the way he hits them, that needs improvement, but overall, he's an incredibly gritty guy, and I expect him to do really well this year's Aussie Open.
Yeah, one thing about Medvedev, funnily enough, is that, when you look at his return of serve posture, when you look at players like Rafa or, Novak or 99% of the field, they're all very, serious, ready to go. Just next time, just keep an eye out for Medvedev.
Yeah.
He looks like he's literally just waiting around for an Uber or the bus. And then it's just it's quite funny the way how relaxed he is on that return of serve.
Yeah, you're right. I've noticed that about him. And generally, when he is expecting the ball or when he just goes about his business, goes around his business, and doesn't seem to be very affected. On the other hand, when things are not going too well, then he can get very moody and shout at his box and be ironic. But I've seen less and less of that lately. So
there was a lot of that during London when he wasn't going well. A lot of sarcasm towards his corner.
Exactly. So coming back to the original question, prediction, it's really tough. But given all the factors we know today, I think it's going to be one of the big three players who wins it. Not ready to give it to a next-gen player yet. If I would, then I would pick Medvedev right now, even though at the end of last year it looked like it's going to be Tsitsipas, but now it seems it's Medvedev.
Yep.
But then again, I think Djokovic has really the best chance to win the tournament. Maybe if Roger plays out of his mind, he beats Novak in the semis, then I think he can win the final, whoever he plays. But my number one pick, I think, would be Djokovic, even though it's not a pick I make easily or lightly.
I'll give my prediction as well now. There's obviously, this is probably the most open it has got in men's tennis for many years now. It's not just the big three. The next gen, although Medvedev, Tsitsipas team have really made strides in the previous year. So it is really hard to predict it, as you have said. I agree with you. But yeah, for me as well, I mean, the way I'm looking at it is, who am I most comfortable to make the prediction for? And you can't really look much further than Novak Djokovic. I could, don't get me wrong, players like Roger, Rafa, Medvedev, they could win it as well. But if I had to make that prediction, then for me, Novak Djokovic wins his 17th slam at this year's Australian Open. And the slam race, at least, will be really getting tight now. all three will be separated by only 3 slams. But yeah, for me, I think Novak Djokovic in about 2 weeks' time will walk away with that Australian Open title. But yeah, as you have also said, if it's a Novak Roger semi-final, I wouldn't be surprised if Roger wins it. And personally, no disrespect to Rafa, but I just feel on the Australian Open, like the surface and through like recent history as well, I think the winner of that match beats Rafa Nadal. And I think personally, I think Novak and Roger, or especially Novak, he would much rather face Rafa in the final than a Medvedev.
Probably. You're probably right, because he really feels, even though Rafa can turn things around any time and he can be a beast, but it feels like today that Novak has Rafa's number on a hard court. So it's very, very hard for Rafa to counter. He needs to play first strike tennis. He needs to use a lot more of his forehand down the line, because otherwise Djokovic is going to strike with the backhand first.
Rafa's forehand cross-court is just completely ineffective against Novak's double-handed backhand. I was watching in the ATP Cup as well. It's not there. And I personally think yes, Rafa can try all these things, but whenever he seems like, for instance, last year in Australia, I'm sure you remember, Rafa was in some phenomenal form, playing really aggressive, hadn't lost a set. But I just feel like, I don't know why, against Novak on a hard court, or mainly a hard court, he just has this mental block, and I feel like he's almost defeated before the match has even begun. So this was a very difficult prediction, it must be said. It is very open, but yeah, for everyone as well, please do leave your comments below on your prediction. But yeah, as well, myself and my friend Thibaut here, we've all unanimously picked Novak Djokovic to walk away with his 8th Australian Open title and 17th Grand Slam.